Hello, everybody. Shan Stratton here for the Restorecast. Guys, it's been a long time, and I know it has. My life has been up and down in every possible way, but still blessed. Wife is happy and blessed. Our kids, man, we've been blessed in so many ways. But you know what? There has been a lot of things gone on in my life, especially over the past 25, 26 years, that we wanted to launch a Restorecast and really share with people some things that I had to go through to restore some of the things that you'll notice on our Restorecast, health-wise, physically, fitness-wise, life-wise, faith-wise, all those different things. So the Restorecast is really, it's not about selling product or anything else. It's about sharing experiences that I believe I have been blessed to be able to share and help people find or restore that health that they are looking for in whatever aspect it is. And to do that, I want to give a recap on what's gone on in my life. And there's really no one outside of my wife and kids that know me better than a great friend of mine, Chris Bailey, who I've asked to actually interview me. He has stood by my side with his wife, Liz, and their kids for years and years. And so, Chris, I throw it back to you, and I look forward to the next couple hours.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Shan, I'm so excited for the Restorecast to kick off. You know, I'm in your position right now, which you're going to be doing with athletes and health professionals and just a lot of different people that you've been able to work with, whether it be professional or family-wise, over the many years. And that's what this Restorecast is going to do. So super excited for the future of that. If you guys have not liked and subscribed to the new YouTube channel and also followed us on all the socials to keep up with this Restorecast, now is a great time to do that. But you know what? Let's take it back, Shan. Let's say this. Shan, you've been dubbed the nutritionist to the pros. What a weird thing for, somebody to say to you, right? Here is Shan Stratton. He is known as the nutritionist to the pros for many years. I mean, over 2 decades working with professional sports teams, which we're going to get in a lot of that today. But wow, I'll tell you, just for you, to be you, to have people look at you in that realm. Let's take it back of how you even got to that part, to those roots. And yeah, we may have lost some of those things and how we're restoring some of that stuff. That's what today's all about. And this is probably going to be multiple parts because there's so much to talk about. So when we get cut off with time, guys, we're going to pick it right back up. So Shan, for those of you who don't know, right, let's start off with, let's go back to your childhood. Was health and fitness a part of your upbringing, sports activities? What was your upbringing like as a child?
Yeah, Chris, I have to start out by saying thank you to my mom and dad. I mean, I was brought up in, we were a low income family. We were in a small town though. Small town meaning there wasn't even a street light in our town growing up. I didn't even know what a red light, yellow light, green light meant. So there was no such thing as, let's call a handyman, or let's call this, or let's call that. So I grew up in a family that my parents had their health, my brother and sister's health was in their hands, literally. Whether it be physical health or our financial health or our, mental, our spiritual, whatever, was all in my parents' hand. And so I have to tell and say thank you to my mom and dad. I try to every day. They live a block from me, and I can't tell them enough. But, growing up, Chris, my mom was always, every day, every week, every month and year, she had some sort of physical challenge that she was participating in, and then trying to share that with us kids, whether it was swimming, whether it was running, bicycling. She did marathons, she opened a gym. And that's really where my first major introduction into sharing what I knew with other people came into play. She opened this gym. She and I together started teaching people how to become physically healthy. And I learned really quickly, Chris, I know you've heard this story, but I learned really quickly that being in a small town, and fortunately I was blessed to be able to, play quarterback on the football team and all that. So the people that came to the gym, they wanted to know, how do I get bigger and faster and stronger and those kind of things. Chris, all we had to teach from were the same exact books and principles and pamphlets and brochures and that have been taught for years and years and years and years. And I can remember sitting down one day with my mom saying, Mom, we can't keep teaching this same thing, because are we healthier as a country? No. Are we getting skinnier as a country? No. All of these things, diabetes is getting worse, cancer was getting worse, heart disease was getting worse, but yet everyone was teaching the same exact principles. So that's really what led me to go out and start looking at, what other opportunities and options are out there. But it really started with my parents, man. I got a mom and dad. They're still alive. They're still healthy, and brother and two sisters that they were the driving force behind everything I did, Chris.
So what was your like go-to sports back then for you?
At that time, it was football.
Football?
Coming from a small, kind of
Country.
northeastern Arizona town, it was all about football. And when, if we didn't make the playoffs, number one, that was never heard of. And then if we didn't make it to the championship, that was really a problem. And the whole town would shut down and go down to Phoenix Mesa area and watch the state championships. And so it was football at that time. But to me, Chris, growing up, professional athletes, they were kind of like comics in a way, in that I would watch them on TV, but there was no way that they actually existed. There was no way that I would actually someday actually even talk to one, much less have the opportunities that I've had. But that's what I grew up, was idolizing these people for their physical abilities, not necessarily what they did or didn't do or believed or didn't believe, but how they were able to perform physically. I just thought that was amazing, but they were nothing more than these things on TV. And so football was my love. But then when I went on, and baseball was what took me where it took me. But I really did and loved pretty much anything that was physical.
Yeah. So I know the story. So you were a really good college or high school quarterback, and you threw out your shoulder, right?
Well, I actually threw out my shoulder in baseball, but I
baseball?
dislocated my fingers in football.
Okay. So I had that story, but the rumor is, I guess you could throw a football probably like what, 70, 80 yards or something like that.
Couldn't do 80, but I got 70.
Yeah, 70. So you had a cannon for an arm, which obviously translated to baseball, and you came a heck of a baseball player, right?
I don't know about heck of a baseball player, but that quickly became my love when I realized, my first year of college, I played football and realized real quickly that being good in high school and being bad in college are about the same thing. I learned real quickly I wasn't big enough, wasn't fast enough. So I transitioned over to baseball, and that, that's really where I started putting my energy and love. Was at that point forward, it was baseball.
Yeah. Now, for the general average person, playing college sports is like the pinnacle of their sports career, right? So you were, if they could even get to that point. Most people, if they can make a high school team, they're excelling, right? Because the general person just can't even make the team, right? So it's a level after level. So you were blessed and fortunate to play at a college level for baseball and for football, and excelled in baseball. When did you really quickly learn that baseball wasn't probably an option for your future, and what did that look like, and how like discouraging was that when you probably put so much time and effort into wanting to be that thing that you couldn't touch before, that professional athlete?
Well, as I said, growing up and watching these professional athletes, that was unattainable. I'm a little town, tiny town, and these people are big city people, and they must have, and so when I all of a sudden realized that, hey, I might have a little talent to try, and then started playing in college and minor league opportunity, and I realized real quickly that, okay, minor league, even though good signing bonus or good money up front, or very, 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 very few make it out of minors into what we call the majors. And so I remember the day playing college baseball thinking, this is fun and it's awesome. And the offers to go to the minors might be tempting. However, minor league life is a grind, and I was much more into the family life and that kind of thing. And so I thought, I'm going to find a way that I can not have to go to a field and practice and play every day, but still work with professional or collegiate athletes. And so that was kind of where I just realized, hey, I got to be honest with myself. I'm good, but I was definitely not good enough to be able to sign a big league contract and change my future and my life for my family and kids.
Mm-hmm. So what was your next move? So college is now over. And so what is your career aspirations at this moment? What did you want to do with your life?
At the end of the season, I remember going back home, sitting down with my mom and dad, but most of my mom, my dad, I mean, he was a hard worker, man. He taught me the value of work. Get up early, stay late. Mom was more always let's think it through, let's sit down and talk things through and look at what's reality. And I remember sitting down and talking to her, and started back doing stuff, working the gym, that kind of thing. And then that's when I realized I don't want to do the same thing as everyone else is doing, because it's not working. I don't want to be like everyone else and contribute to the downfall of America's health. And it's been doing that, Chris, for 28 years, 30, 40 years. We are not getting healthier as a people, as a country. And I didn't want to contribute to that 28 years ago. I don't want to contribute to it today. So it was at that time when I really said, Mom, I'm going to go start looking at what else is out there, what options are out there, because we can't keep doing the same thing and telling our own friends and family that come into our gym the things that, even though they're in books, they're not helping us. Mm-hmm. They're not making us a healthy society. And so that's really when I left that small little town after, college and all the options and opportunities, and had the an opportunity to serve a mission for the church. Went to Japan, spent 2 years in Japan, started really understanding who I was as an individual, what I wanted to be, and what the kind of dad and husband I wanted to be. So I served 2 years in Japan, learned the language, loved the people, loved the culture. And that was one of those things that I got to, experience and kind of tuck away and share as time goes on. And that's really what the Restore Cast is all about, is, as you know, Chris, is sharing those opportunities. One of the funniest things that I share with people when they ask me, well, how hard is the Japanese language? And I to this day remember how difficult it was, and thinking, I don't know if I can learn this language. This is tough. I've been over there for a couple of months, and I was sitting in a park, and I remember seeing a Japanese guy walking down the road, walking down the trail towards me, and his dog was running all over the place, and he would throw the ball and tell the dog to go get the ball. The dog would run and grab the ball and bring it back. Then the guy would tell the dog, sit. The dog would sit. Then he would throw the ball and say, stay, and the dog would stay. And then he's doing all these things. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And then all of a sudden it hit me. Chris, that was the moment that I said, doggone, if a dog can learn Japanese, I can learn this. And from that point forward, I just moved, and I became very, very, very fluent in Japanese. And, I still speak Japanese pretty fluently, but that was one of those experiences.
Well, to our Japanese watchers, why don't you give them a big shout out to them?
こんにちは。ここに来て、聞こえる。本当にありがとうございます。頑張ります。
Excellent. So you return home after some time over in Japan, doing some mission work, and now what are you faced with? Because now you got to figure out a career. You're probably, I don't know where you're at right now in the timeline of meeting your wife, wanting to start a family. Where are you at right now, coming home as a young man, trying just to figure out life right at this point, right?
You said it right there, trying to figure out life. Fortunately, I had figured out the the spiritual, if you will, aspect, the religious aspect of things that I need in my life to feel that I'm doing the right things by God, making the right choices that really mean something. So, what a blessing that was to have that confidence at a young age. But then you get off a mission, you have 2 years that basically every day you wake up and your whole entire goal or responsibility, if you will, was to just go out and serve, find ways to help people understand, what God is all about, and what reality of spirituality is, and the importance of it. Not to go back to that, but one other story. I remember leaving in my apartment one morning with my companion there, and our goal was to make X amount of people smile that day. That was our whole goal for the entire day. Not to convert people, not to this, not it was literally, let's make X amount of people smile. And so I'm riding my bike, and if any of you kind of picture there's a kind of an image of the women in the smaller towns in Japan. They worked so hard out in those rice fields that they were always slumped over. And I remember driving past this lady that was slumped over pushing a little cart. And I said hi very loudly and boisterously, to try and make her smile, crazy gaijin, or that's American. And she didn't even look up. And so I thought, you know what? So I turned back around, drove past her again, said the same thing. She didn't smile because she was just looking down the whole time. So I thought, okay, now I'm gonna. So I go back around, I come driving down, and I turn my bike really hard and literally just flop down on the ground in front of her cart like I had wrecked, looking up at her, saying in Japanese, "Hi, how are you today?" And Chris, she got the biggest smile and just laughed. Didn't say a word. I didn't say a word, got back up, and away I went. But to this day, I remember I made that lady smile that day. Might have been the only time she smiled. Might have been one in 1,000. I don't know. But I came home with that part at least understood. So then when I get home, Chris, to your question of what was next, now I got to start finding what's going to take me through life, what's going to finance me, and hopefully I find a wife and have kids and raise a family. And so that's really when, for a minute, I worked with Mom in the gym back again, and then went down to the Phoenix area, the metro area where I'm at now, and started really looking around at what are the options out there, because we can't just keep teaching, eat low calorie, drink a lot of water, exercise 3 days a week. It's not working. Wasn't working then, Chris. It's not working now. So that's really what drove me to start looking. And I did. I went from several different concepts of health or wellness or gyms or this or that. And, came across, fortunately, a concept that stuck then and still to this day is the premise of everything that I do. And that was a company that taught enzyme-based lifestyles, enzyme-based nutrition.
Yeah, so let's stop there. So for the listener, the company that you're referring to is called Infinity2, right?
Yep.
So that company was an enzyme-based nutrition. So if anybody's heard Shan speak over the years, this is where you got your understanding of what is enzyme-based nutrition, right? We can say it all day, and people look at us for many years with a glare over their face because they have no clue what we're talking about when we talk about enzymes or probiotics for almost 2 decades. And then now it's the latest rage, and everybody talks about probiotics and enzymes. So you found this company, and one of the founders of the company was one of the foremost um, uh, enzyme
Expert.
experts, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got your firsthand knowledge of that, and let's talk about what you found fascinating about with that company, and then ultimately how did you end up working for those guys?
So the gentleman you're talking about, Dr. Stan Bynum, loved that man in more ways than just him spending his time teaching and sharing and holding my hand and leading me by the hand with the others in the company. But he and I created a friendship. Again, anyone can look the name up, Dr. Stan Bynum. He and Dr. Edward Howell are by far two of the leaders. They brought enzymes and enzymatic activity or enzyme nutrition. They basically brought that into mainstream. And it was just at that time that it was just starting, as you said, to catch on. So I was fortunate to work with, Dr. Stan Bynum and Dr. Betsy Meshbesher, probably the world's foremost expert in whole food vitamins. Dr. Harvey Ashmead and Albion Laboratories, probably the world's leading expert to this day. Albion Laboratories is still the leading expert in amino acid chelated minerals. All of these things that we're saying, Chris, are only in nature. As soon as you take the natural part out by cooking or processing or whatever, those things are gone. So when I say words like whole food vitamins, amino acid chelated minerals, enzyme activity, probiotics, prebiotics, and got to work with the world's leading experts at that time,
And
those
what
are
what year was this, Shan?
shoot, early 90s.
Okay, so like 91, 92 ish.
Probably 92-ish. You know better than anybody. I'm
Yeah.
terrible with timelines, but yeah, I would say early 90s, 92-ish is really when it all kind of got started and moving up, and then Infinity was growing. We were making a splash. We were, speaking at conferences and getting invited to conferences all over the country and the world. And so that company was growing very quickly. And fortunately, thanks to that company, my name was tied to a lot of things and education and teaching and things like that. So, I'm fortunate and blessed and humble at where I'm at right now. And if it weren't for companies and people like that, I wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well,
yeah,
let's go back just a little bit. So, how did you even break down that door to even here's a kid who spent 2 years overseas, not working in the health field,
yeah.
um, worked at his mom's gym. What did you go to college for, by the way?
So I went to college mainly for sports and girls,
Okay.
but then I studied a little bit too.
What was your minor or major there?
Business.
Business. Okay,
Yeah.
so you went for business. So here you are, a business kid, um, who doesn't know much business because you're involved in sports and girls and
Just trying to find, yeah.
yeah, finding life.
Yeah.
So how does a company that has the world's leading enzymologist in the world writing the books back then? People go back and read some of those early books,
Yeah.
and they're the things that are still being taught today. Or now people are understanding the importance of them. How did you even break down that door to even get these guys to say, "Hey, Shan, come on, let's give you a chance over here"?
Well, first of all, you talk about books and stuff. I would invite anybody to go find the book Enzyme Nutrition by Dr. Edward Howell. That really is the Bible, if you will, of the first studies ever conducted and collected for the most part in a book form. You read Enzyme Nutrition, you're going to understand the value that we, Chris, our companies have taught over the years. Enzymes are the driving force behind every single nutrient, whether it be a vitamin or a mineral or an antioxidant or a protein or a carbohydrate or a fat or anything else. So, there really are some books that I suggest people go and look at and read. Look up Dr. Stan Bynum, who I worked with hand in hand every single day. Those are great examples for you to learn whether you use or do anything with what I do or not. That's good information for people that's interested in improving their health physically, internally, gut health, digestion, body fat, weight loss, all of those things. So your question was, how did I break into a company like that? The reality is, long story short, I really had to work for free,
Hmm.
and I agreed to that. And when they asked me, hey, um, do you think you could handle taking and sharing and building our company, our business, our products, our philosophies into the athletic world and professional athletes? And I'm like, yeah, I can do that, of course. And I, in essence, walked out of there with a job, no pay, and get our products into professional and collegiate or known athletes. I can remember going down the elevator. It was on the 7th floor, and I remember going down the elevator thinking, what did I just do? I didn't know where to start. I didn't, I didn't really know any professional athlete I could call and say, hey, friend, old buddy. But I had to just start grinding, Chris, and I did. And as many people have heard my story over the years, I started doing some cold calling. And fortunately, as you know the story, which I'm sure we'll tell here in a minute,
Yeah.
the New York Yankees, and I still to this day think that it was a blessing of how it happened, because they probably wouldn't have listened to me otherwise. But that was really the first professional team and organization that I really started working with, created a relationship with their head trainer, Gene Monahan. And, he was a trainer with the New York Yankees for years and years and years and years and years that I worked very, very, very closely with. And that's really how it started. So I worked for this company for free for 6 months, mainly because I wanted access to Dr. Stan Bynum, Dr. Betsy Meshbesher, Dr. Kim Shahani, some of these world-renowned doctors. I wanted access to that. I don't care if I work for free or not. So that's what I did.
Well, I think that this is a great point. You said it right here in a few minutes here. We won't wait a few minutes. I think this is the defining point of your life in regards of not only business, but how you approach everything in life about not giving up. And ultimately, I'll let you tell the story, but speaking from your heart. And I think this is the part of the Restore Cast, no matter what part in life you are, these are principles that you can take and be motivated to do the things that either God has called you to do, goals that you have set for yourself to reach. And I think Shan's story is an inspiration for us to do that. So, how in the world did you land the New York Yankees?
So this story has not only been told many times, but has been recorded many times and put online many times. And I still, to this day, sitting right here in our offices in Mesa, Arizona, get people that'll fly in from out of state or out of town or out of country and ask if they can come sit down in our offices or meet with me or interview. And inevitably, it's always tell us the New York Yankee story. And Chris, this, as you kind of alluded to, this is what the Restore Cast is all about. It's about taking the things that I've been blessed to learn and experience and share it in a way that hopefully is influential and beneficial to people in their walk of life, whatever stage of life they're in. This experience is really what formed me, I would say, for the rest of my life. And it started by happenstance allowed me to get a hold of Gene Monahan, the head trainer of the New York Yankees. And it was actually by accident to some degree, because I'd been calling and calling. He wasn't going to return my calls. He'd get thousands of them. And back in the day, you got to remember, this is 20 some years ago. If any of you remember, every now and then you'd call someone and they would pick up the phone before it even rang because they were getting ready to call someone else. And that's an experience that happened. And I said, Mr. Monahan, this is Shan Stratton. And I started in and he said, I know who you are, because I'd left so many messages. Long story, that part of it shorter, I convinced him to allow me 15 minutes of time. he said, if this will make you stop leaving messages and leave me alone, I will give you 15 minutes of time to come down to Tampa, Florida, where we hold spring training every year. And I'll give you 15 minutes, but you got to promise me you'll leave and you'll never call me again. And I said, okay. So I remember I had about 4 or 5 months before that experience. And I knew the exact amount of time that I had. And so I created, rehearsed, memorized word for word what I needed to say in 14 minutes and 59 seconds. I can remember getting out there. I can remember the hotel that I stayed in. I remember the room. I remember not sleeping. I remember calling and saying, I'm here. I remember him saying, okay, you're going to come to the guard gate and, give him your name. So here I am, young kid, nervous, not really knowing much about life, having never really known a professional trainer, anything like that. And I'm going to sell them on a philosophy of enzymes and whole food vitamins and chelated minerals and probiotics. The next morning, sick to my stomach, I go down there, go to the guard gate. The guard looks at the name and he said, oh, yeah, I know who you are. Go on in. Mr. Monahan's waiting. And Chris, you see movies sometimes where you kind of go in and all of a sudden it's almost like music is playing and there's a golden ring of sunshine around, this stadium. And here I am pulling into the players and the trainers and the owners and all of those. And I pull in, and as my luck would have it, Chris, there was an open parking spot right almost up very front. I pull right into that parking spot, get out, start walking, and now remember we're in Tampa in the middle of March, so the humidity is there. It's hot. I open up the two double doors to walk underneath the stadium, and as I open these doors, I remember that cool air hitting me and thinking this is the best day of my life. Walking down this hallway, and I get about a quarter of the way down, Chris, and I start hearing echoing through this hallway. And the echoing is getting a little louder and louder, and it arches all the way around under the stadium. So I can't really see what's coming. All of a sudden, I see a man running towards me, yelling the top of his lungs, who is parked in George Steinbrenner's private parking spot? And it hit me instantly, Chris, that's why the open spot in the front. I knew I'd messed up. He comes running up, obviously knowing that it was me. He asked me, "Are you Shan Stratton?" And for the only time in my entire life, Chris, I wanted to say, "Nope, not me." But as you know, the story is, I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He told me, "You get out there, you move that car, you park it down the way, and this is part of your time with me, and there's no exceptions," and turned around and took off. And so I remember setting my bag down, leaning up against the wall there, running out the doors, getting in my car. The next parking spot's not for, I don't know, 20, 30 cars down at least. So it wasn't terribly far, but my time was clicking. So I come running back, sprinting back, middle of March, Tampa, Florida, humidity, gray shirt. Yes, you can see me sweating through my shirt. Chris, by this time, I'm physically in tears. Run in the hallway, grab my bag, run down to the end of the hallway, go in a side door where I wasn't directed to go, and there's the door, moniker on the door there, head trainer Gene Monahan. Knock on the door. Gene Monahan opens the door, sticks his foot in the door with about, I would say maybe a 2 foot, 2.5 foot space, and says, you now have 5 minutes, go, or 2 minutes, or what, I don't remember the exact time, but it was limited amount of minutes. And here I had this thing memorized to the T that was going to take me through my entire timeline. And so I instantly started thinking, okay, I can either cut a bunch of stuff out, or I can talk 2 times as fast and get it all out there. And so I did. I started, as we know in the industry, I started just throwing up all over him with information. And I could realize, as many of you can relate to the experience, I can remember him looking at his watch, looking up at the air, waiting for me to get my sentences out so he could say, okay, I gave you your time, don't call me, get out. And Chris, that was probably the most important experience of my entire life, because what happened over the next couple minutes of time has genuinely and did genuinely change me in my approach to life. And that was that 2 or 3 minutes into this, I realized he wasn't hearing a word. I probably wasn't even making sense in what I was saying. So set my bag down, stopped for a minute, tears in my eyes, tried to dry them up. I said, Mr. Monahan, I'm sorry. I parked in the wrong spot. I'm sure nothing I've said has made any sense. You get sick and tired of people like me. But Chris, and folks, anybody listening to this, that was the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life, because it was right then and there, that moment, that I realized, speak from what's in your heart. And I did. I genuinely believed in nature and nature's principles of enzymes and whole food vitamins and probiotics. And I genuinely, Chris, I believed that. And so I started talking with him, or to him, from what I believed in my heart. And Chris, not only did a minute or 2 or 3 go by, but 5 or 6 minutes into it, he actually invited me into his office. And I sat there that day because I threw all the things out that I thought people wanted to hear. And I started speaking from what was in my heart, my belief, my understanding. The parts that I didn't understand, I had then, and I still to this day have no problem saying, I don't know. But it was that moment then and there that I created a relationship and solidified my relationship with Gene Monahan, which ultimately then become working with almost every player with the New York Yankees, from Reggie Jackson to Yogi Berra to Mariano Rivera to Paul O'Neill, to that list went on and on and on and on, for people that I got to spend time with, and was the greatest blessing of my life, not because what I knew up here, but because what I believed in my heart. And that, from that point to this day, has really changed the way that I approach business, life, finances, family, being a dad, being a husband, all of those things.
Mm-hmm. I think
I
it
have
just
made
comes
mistakes, but that is one thing that I know should never, ever, ever get away from me, ever. Speak from the heart.
Yeah, I think that there's the genuine part, right? There's a true genuineness in what you're telling of the story, right? To not only try to be genuine for ourselves and do the right things for ourselves, but that it is true genuineness. You don't have to try; it just is, and that's what we've always strived for. And we'll go down the storyline, whatever company that we've been, because I never got a chance to be part of Infinity2 by itself. I come involved in a little bit later, and I can share part of my stuff as we go through that too, of how we met and all those things. But this,
I think it's, if I can, I think it's important right here, right now, to say, because I know there are going to be people watching this, and I hope they are, that are saying, well, wait a minute, Shan, I know some aspects of your life that, weren't the perfect example of what you're talking about. And that's what the Restore Cast is all about, Chris, as I've shared with you.
mm-hmm.
That was everything that I believed in. And we're going to get into the stories, but there have been times in my life, later in my business life, that I unfortunately did make some wrong decisions. I don't know that they were unethically wrong, but they were wrong decisions that I look back on and think, in my heart of hearts, I probably knew that wasn't the right thing to do. So that's what the Restore Cast is about. I want to share every aspect of my life, the bad with the good.
Mm-hmm.
And we will get into those times. I've never done anything that I think is terribly wrong, but Chris, there are times, as in probably everybody's life, that I had to step back, and that's what I've done over the past 2 or 3 years, as you know, is step back and say, man, this isn't Shan meeting with the New York Yankees 20 some years ago. I made some decisions, and that's what this Restore Cast is all about. So whether it's in business life, religious life, spiritual life, athlete, whatever it is, just because we've made mistakes, let's restore what we always knew.
Yeah. So here's some classics, right? Here's you with no grays, and you're working with Joe Torre here.
Yeah.
Who you actually helped coach through some cancer protocols and some nutrition things for that. And here you are,
wow,
head coach of the New York Yankees.
Yeah.
And you're the guy who now thought it was completely unobtainable to even talk to these guys. Now they're asking you for advice. I mean, some of these pictures, here you are on the field at an Eagles game with
Rodney Pete.
Yeah, there they are, full mullet and everything. I mean, I think you're
Ricky Waters. Wow. Jeez.
Ironically, that whole outfit is in style now. That's how old you are. But look at that. That is that's a great times. I mean, think this was one of my favorite pictures. Here you are
wow.
after a World Series win with the Yankees in their clubhouse.
Yeah.
I mean, how does that even feel? What is that? Is that a numbing feeling to be there, or are these just your buddies at this point?
Yeah, at that point, yeah. David Wells, the one in the back, he and I, we really spent a lot of time together. He was always battling weight issues, and so he and I, we spent a lot of time together. But yeah, that was in San Diego, down in the clubhouse after the World Series championship game, shaking champagne, and Joe Torre and I were in his office holding. We got to hold the World Series trophy together, and so golly, I haven't seen these in forever, man. But yeah, that was the time. That's where it all started, and I was certainly blessed to be there.
Yeah, so I mean, it was everything. You guys, Infinity2, you guys were all over the place. It wasn't just Major League Baseball or even that NFL picture. You were working with Charles. Yeah, Sir Charles here. Well, this would have been his time with the Rockets.
Correct.
Yeah, so also the same time
he was out there with Clyde. He's out there with Clyde Drexler, and
I mean, I think one of the one thing that I don't think you get credited enough for is assisting and helping in Hakeem Olajuwon. He was diagnosed with severe anemia in the early 90s before Houston won those championships, and his career possibly was in quite some jeopardy of moving forward. And Infinity2 was able to create a product within their doctor line that truly helped him at that time, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And I'll be the first to say it's not all about me, Chris, especially at that time. I was working with the experts, industry leading experts. So we got to go out there and do a lot of work at that time with Barkley and Clyde Drexler and Hakeem, and Hakeem was going through that issue with the anemia, and they kept giving him iron, and it wasn't getting better. That was right around that time when we really started understanding, especially us at Infinity, amino acid chelated minerals And iron minerals that are mainstream and used, they're two different things. Amino acid chelated minerals are minerals that are found in nature, right in a plant. And those amino acids that are tied to those minerals are what are required to pull the mineral through the cell wall. So he had a scenario where the type of mineral that was being given to him was just a ferrous or an iron mineral rock, and its absorption rate is next to nothing, and his uptake ability was next to nothing. Soon as we changed that over to an amino acid chelated form, or very simply, the same exact form that God puts in every single raw food, amino acid chelated iron, amino acid chelated calcium, amino acid chelated, I don't care what it is, if it's a mineral, for it to be pulled through those gut walls and utilized at a cellular level, it has to have an amino acid tied to it. And that's why God does it. So to give dead minerals to someone, in his case, not everyone, some can uptake those not very well. He couldn't. So the process wasn't getting better. It was a relatively short period of time that we were able to increase that iron content level in his blood cells. Never heard another thing about it. Never an issue from that point forward, at least as far as I've ever known, to this day. And I continued to speak with his head trainer. And then even when, he started doing things all around the country and stuff, I continued to speak with their trainers on a lot of things, and never was another issue.
It's because restoration of certain things are actually quite simple when we can figure out what we actually need, right? So in this case, it was just a very simple aspect of the proper form of iron being utilized. I believe that was a liquid product, if I'm not mistaken. No, that wasn't. That was just a higher iron content product. Yeah, so it was unavailable to most of us as doctors. So here's another classic picture. Here you are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Maria Sharapova.
Yeah. So you got to start to work with everybody. And the reason why, if I direct everybody to the attention, why you saw in the Charles Barkley photo or even in this Maria Sharapova picture is you did something called dark field microscopy. And so why don't you tell, why people were attracted to Infinity2 products, not that they could prove that they worked of how they felt, but the proof was actually in their blood.
Well, these pictures, and the cool thing about this RestoreCast, and I hope that everyone really understands when I say Chris and I have not discussed what was going to be brought up or shared. I haven't seen these pictures in years, and I had no idea Chris was even going to ask what he has asked or going to ask. He just knows my life. So I can honestly tell you, this RestoreCast is about peeling those layers back of the things that I've learned and sharing things that I learned then and some of the mistakes that I've made, which again, we're going to get into. But when we got to do dark field microscopy, really what it is, it just gives someone a look into how their red blood cells are acting or reacting, whatever you want to call it. I don't want to get into the details because, like anything to do in that industry, there is controversy, but we didn't use it as a, what do you want to call it? Diagnostic tool by any means. We simply wanted to show the athlete, the client, the customer. In my case, it was almost always professional athletes, but I wanted to show them what their red blood cells looked like so I could talk to them about, Charles Barkley, when you're eating something, that food has to get into the red blood cell, and the red blood cell then has to carry it throughout the body and deliver it at separate parts. So I would ask him, and I can remember asking many athletes, hey, show me real quickly, what's the size of a red blood cell? Well, of course, it's smaller than the eye can see, right, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about every food that goes in your mouth, the only way your body's going to use it is if it gets broken all the way down small enough to get taken up inside a red blood cell and then carried and then pushed back out of the red blood cell and into the tissue. That's the only way nutrients can be utilized. Without the presence of enzymes, your foods are not going to be broken down into that small of a nutrient or a molecule. It's not going to happen. Enzymes are required for nutrients to be broken down and utilized. And ironically, we talk about God so much. There's not a single food on the face of the earth, Chris, not a single raw food on the face of the earth that's not packed full of enzymes. Not one. No leaf, no meat, no plant, no. If it's raw, it is packed full of enzymes. So one thing I always try and say is, if God thought it was important enough to put enzymes in every single food on the face of this earth, who am I or we to say, but I'm going to take supplements or eat foods that have no enzymes, because the second you cook or process any food, you kill every single enzyme. So with dark field microscopy, it just gave us a good opportunity to bring up educational pieces of, here's what your red blood cells look like when we have enzymes and circulatory enzymes, such as proteolytic enzymes. We can start separating those red blood cells. And the more the cells separate, the more surface area we have, so that the body can scrape and pull the nutrients out of those cells. When someone takes enzymes, their red blood cells tend to be much more separated. When they don't take enzymes and or eat cooked or processed foods, those red blood cells are very, very tightly clumped together, like the image that you just shown a couple of seconds ago, Chris. The more the cells are clumped together, the less oxygen or nutrients you're going to get out of them. Driving force behind cell separation, one of which is enzymes that you get from raw fruits, raw vegetables, raw grains, raw meats, or enzyme supplementation, which is what we've really been known for through all of our companies.
Yeah, there's actually a specific type of photography that measures the energy coming off of certain things, humans, animals, but you can do it with food as well. You take cooked food versus raw food. And when you cook the food over 118 degrees, we're not going to get into a whole thing here, but we know that enzyme activity all dies. And the life of that photography reveals these things. So it's the same thing that happens within the body. So you can take a look at these photographs. It's a Kirlian photography, and you can see the raw food, and it's just so vibrant, the energy coming off of this. And that is due to the enzyme activity within the food. It's the same thing within the body. Those blood cells are required, as we know, to have those enzymes there to separate those blood cells.
Yeah.
Life is in enzymes. Life is in there. The minute that we, as people, without enzymes, we can't stand up, sit down, hug your friends. That's an inside joke. And even down to live. I mean, you die without enzymes. And so I think that was the key, right? Here you are, teaching simple principles to these athletes that even got down to, you got an opportunity to work with Garth Brooks, right?
Brooks. Yeah.
These simple processes. Most of you guys don't know that Garth Brooks played minor league baseball. And I'm sure that's how you got to meet him, through the San Diego organization, right? And,
Well, but super quick story, but I actually worked with him when he was with minor league baseball. After I had met him, I was in Nashville. Got to go to the old the name I forgot the name, the main place in Nashville where all the old country stars went. Little Jimmy Dickens, and this going way back. But he actually was there that night, and I, because of my relationship with the Yankees, fortunate, was right there in that front row. And so David Wells was a huge fan of Garth Brooks. And there's little Jimmy Dickens right there. That was back in their dressing room after the show. But so when I was there, I got to mention to Garth Brooks. I said, "Hey, David Wells was." David is into music. He's an electric guitarist. I said, "David Wells would like to talk with you about exchanging guitars." And he thought that was the coolest thing. So I spent some time with him back in his dressing room, talking about David Wells and guitars and all of that. So we actually kind of created a relationship and friendship, got to know his manager. Then it was a couple years later when he started working and tried to go out and play minor league baseball. And fortunately, I was called in to do a lot of work with him then. But
Yeah, and he wasn't that bad. So
it wasn't.
yeah, I mean, he's a legend at everything he did. Hulk Hogan, right? I mean, you got an interesting story about Hulk Hogan, right? You got to fly on a helicopter with him, right?
No, on the helicopter, that was with it was actually with Donald Trump and Reggie Jackson and a group from Japan.
Wow.
Yeah, but Hulk Hogan, I spent some time in Las Vegas when he was, doing a lot of his wrestling and stuff like that. In true fairness, I didn't get to know, Hulk Hogan real well. We spoke a couple times on the phone. I did some work with him. He used some products, but he's one that I couldn't say like most of the other guys you've shown that I've spent a lot of time.
So what was it like in the helicopter with the former president of the United States?
Yeah, that was a experience I'd certainly never forget. That's a few years forward, but I was I was doing some PR stuff, and because of my relationships in Japan where I served my mission, I got to know a lot of people over there. Then I started doing some work with Japanese Major League Baseball, doing some work with that. They started sending groups of very, very, very rich people over here. One of my responsibilities was to tie them with a celebrity whom they paid. Everything was paid and all of that. And so I did that with a couple of different ones. Joe Girardi, he and I pulled him in on one, but one of them was Reggie Jackson. And that was a group of Japanese that honestly, I think they had more money than God has. I mean, it was it was ridiculous the money they had. And so one of the things we set up, Donald Trump flew in, we loaded everyone up and flew to Trump, Trump International, Trump National. And he and I and Reggie teed off the first hole, and then he took off. But Reggie and I finished with the Japanese group, finished that golf.
Wow.
So it was pretty interesting. Something not everyone gets to do.
No. I mean, especially in hindsight. I mean, he was already, huge back then, but obviously, what he has become today, love him or hate him, right? Everybody's got their opinions.
That's back when he was doing what was his show? The
Apprentice.
The Apprentice. That was one of the first two seasons of The Apprentice, because I can remember when we landed, his right hand two people, the older, white-haired gentleman and the lady, and I'm terrible with names, but they were there to greet everyone as well. So, I thought that was pretty cool because I loved The Apprentice. I thought that was awesome. But
so here we are. You're working with all these athletes, and for you, life has got to be on cloud 9 in business, right? So where in here did God lead you to the woman you'd ultimately marry and have 3 amazing children with? When in this timeline of here you are, Infinity2, just crushing it, living a dream that you couldn't even fathom before, and remaining extremely humble, and here you are, bright-eyed kid. Where did the story of meeting Jody come in play?
So that was right when I first started working for Infinity.
Okay.
One of the owners of Infinity was someone that I was obviously working with at the time and learning from and things like that. And he was over at his in-laws' house, which I went with him. And so I'm here at his in-laws, standing in the house, and all of a sudden I turn around and in walks this blonde-haired, amazing, beautiful girl. And that was my first real introduction, and it was short and quick. And I sometimes try and, I always want to word this the right way, because my wife has been beautiful by all means in every single aspect, but I wasn't attracted to her physically. And she and I've had this discussion hundreds of times over. She was working at the fitness center that Infinity2 owned as well. And so once I started working there, even though I wasn't necessarily attracted physically to her per se, I fell in love with the way that she started making people feel that she was the trainer for, or at the time, the health coach for. She would bring in these, overweight or diabetics or, whatever it was, and she would make them feel like they're just the most valuable people in the world. And that's what I fell in love with. And to this day, that is my wife. Physically, obviously I'm attracted to her now, and sometimes you fall in love with the physical side. Sometimes you fall in love with the other, and then they all come together, which is where, and, really from that point forward, we've we've been inseparable and blessed, and raised a family of 3 kids.
And I think, and your initial aspect was because she was into bodybuilding, right?
Yeah. I mean, let's be honest about it. Her body fat was, I don't know, 6%. And she was 2 or 3 weeks away from a bodybuilding show. So she was, yeah.
So that's where you were like, hey, she's great. But this isn't my cup of tea naturally, right? And so but then once you saw all that, and then the bodybuilding stopped, and then you're going, oh my gosh, now I have everything, right?
Yeah.
At that point. Yeah. So it was,
she looked phenomenal as a bodybuilder. I mean, you couldn't look better, but
when she showed, you know what, I think all it came down to when she was showing you up on how good he looked, that was the problem, right? So I think you're like, wow, I couldn't compete in that realm. So so that's where that came from. So now you're pretty much sky high. Things are going great. Infinity2's becoming a sort of not a household name by any stretch of the imagination, but it was doing big things on a small stage, right? It had a very small thing. It had it became a network marketing company at that point. I believe at its height, it had about 40,000 distributors, somewhere around there.
I don't know for sure, but I think we had more than that.
Okay. But a good majority of them were doctors, chiropractors.
Yeah.
So you were attracting a very professional crowd with that. And so did you think at that point, like Infinity2 is sort of untouchable and you guys aren't going anywhere? Was that kind of your mindset within?
No, I don't think I ever thought anything other than, we're going to succeed. I believe, Chris, when you're doing the right things and really teaching things that I then and to this day believe that are God's intentions as far as the nutrients, that, that's all I'm talking about in this setting, is we were really trying to teach what had gotten away from society, and that was salads and fruits and vegetables and all these kind of things. It was very, very quickly going away because fast food was very convenient, and all of those things that we see, convenience, people buying convenience is convenient for a reason. It's convenient because there's no effort put into it, and it's taken all the good stuff out of it for the most part. And so Infinity, I can still say to this day, even though it's not around anymore, we helped a lot of people, Chris. We really did. And I say we lightly. I was I was a part of it, but there were some big players. I mean, there were some big doctors and nutritionists and business gurus, and there were some big people that helped and touched a lot of people.
Formulators. There was a lot of people there.
Yep.
And this is what I almost want to, just not that we're spending much time on Infinity Days, but Um, Infinity2 had so many people professionally that worked with them. They ended up spawning, oh gosh, you probably know more than me, but spawning so many different offshoot companies of people who left always would start their own company or their own thing or create their
Yeah.
own, because they now had the knowledge of how to create products because they were so intertwined. And here we are dealing with how to create products that had delivery systems and all of these things that were happening at the time. And you always saw that. And I think it came to a true fruition of how big Infinity principles were getting when there was that guy Don LePray, who was if people don't know, he I believe he's dead now, but he's the late night guy who did the infomercials on all of that stuff, right? Well, he was involved in creating what the world's best vitamin, and even Saturday Night Live did a sketch on here he is marketing the world's best vitamin. They did a whole thing on it. I believe it was played by David Spade, but the principles were within that um, were from these principles of whole food nutrition, enzymes and probiotics, and delivering these nutrients to the body. And it was all these spawn off multi-level marketing companies, because we would get those later on, and we'd go, where did you get your information? You trace the roots back, and they're going, they were an Infinity2
Yeah.
chiropractor. They were an Infinity2 this. So a lot of the roots of a lot of things that are out there still to this day, people came from these I2 days of here there's this enzyme nutrition company. Guys, I don't believe at that time there was any other players doing enzyme nutrition.
No.
And so now let's progress into the story. So Infinity2 gets bought out by a company called Ecoquest, right?
Mhm.
And so now you're transitioning to from an Arizona-based company to a Tennessee company, and you're leading, not at this point yet, but you're about to lead charge of running the whole nutrition division for a massive um, multi-level marketing company at that point. So now you're switching, transitioning. You're still active with the sports players, but now you've just probably doubled or tripled your distributor base at this point. And in my regards, I think this is when you started to develop even more of for yourself, because you became more of a speaker at this point in your time, is to now take the nutrition that you're teaching the athletes to the everyday general person, and that became your next stage of where your mind went in business wise. So how was that transition from switching as Infinity was bought out by EcoQuest and sort of merged over there for a bit? How was that transition, and how was that?
Well, I look at every aspect and every company and every person that I've had the opportunity. I was going to say pleasure. It's not always a pleasure, but the opportunity to spend time with. And I think I can honestly say there's something good you can pull out of every scenario, every person, every company, even though that company, person, scenario might not be good. But there's always, and so I look back and, I'll always be grateful for Infinity2. I will always be grateful. I was always one of the, second or third or even fourth tier maybe, because there were so many, as you said, experts in the industry. But man, the things I learned and was taught and experienced. So that transition over to the new company when we went to EcoQuest, that was my first real opportunity, because none of the big doctors and people like that, they had all pretty much just decided to retire or move on for the most part. So that was my first opportunity to kind of step up and be the person that carries that torch
Mm-hmm.
onto a larger field. And that's exactly what this company was. Is they had a much larger distributor force. Therefore, it gave us a much larger audience to share our true mission with. And as Chris, my real mission is to really share enzyme-based nutrition. And there's no way, well, we'll talk about some of that later, but so that was my opportunity to really get out there and start speaking. And I remember that was really when you and I first started doing a lot of work together. You and Liz were, if not the largest, but definitely the most active leaders in the Ohio area. And you guys would have me come out and we would do events out there. And I fell in love with the way that you and Liz taught the same exact principles that I was teaching and had been teaching for a while. And you guys didn't even have much of that background. That was just something that was really, as you've said, it just has always seemed like in your heart and mind, well, of course that's the way it is. That's the way God created food. Why would we change it?
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, that experience was a great experience for me. Was there for a few years and met a lot of great people, learned a lot of great things. I think I did, I grew the company exponentially in the nutrition side of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
So let's go back to that. I mean, one of your biggest things was being on the road. And I think this is the thing that, when we get into the core health years, right? I think this was the start of that burnout process, of, you were doing seminar after seminar. And for most people, if they haven't heard you speak and do a presentation, there's a infectious aspect about it because there's a genuine humbleness about being revealed truth. And it's not in a way of, hey, buy my products and do this. It's get the right principles in your life. You're going to make these best decisions for you. And, that's what became attractable to us. Wasn't even you. It was the message that you were sharing with us and that we could then replicate that and share with others. It was a simple message. It was easy to understand. But you were doing it all over the place. It was beginning that burning out process of just being on the road constantly, being away from home, living in Arizona, but working for a company that was in Tennessee. You probably had to travel there every couple months to do, all that kind of stuff, right? So what was
it was every 3 weeks,
and
that was just for the corporate part of it. Just the business side of it. About every 3 weeks, I'd fly out there, and then I would be there for at least a week, and then from there, I would fly during that week. I would fly out and do events, and then during that period of time, I was doing at least one, if not as many as 2 or 3 events every single week, whether at Florida, Oregon, Arizona, Montana, New York. I was doing a stage event at least once a week minimum during that period.
People don't understand what a staged event even means because you get up to do a presentation, but then you come early and you stay late because here come the questions. Hey, Shan, I want to talk to you about this. Hey, Shan, can you spend time with me on this? It is always somebody wanting a piece of you at every event. It wasn't just, hey, walk on the stage, as many of these speakers do, and walk off. You were available to everybody that was there. And these events would start at 7 and you wouldn't be back into your hotel probably till 11:30, 12 o'clock again, because then they're like, hey, why don't you come out to, the leaders would say, come out to dinner with us. Then you're talking to them after talking with all the people for 2 to 3 hours after the events, right? I mean, this was a constant life. How did, and balancing faith, right? Balancing family. This was probably very challenging for you at this time, I would assume.
It was, I enjoyed the aspect that people wanted to spend time with me because I genuinely believed I was sharing a message that was improving their life. I think I said this many times when people were always like, oh my gosh, you spend time with all the athletes, and you must have really done something special. And I didn't, Chris. The only thing special about Shan Stratton was that I had a message and I delivered it in a way that I think was very real, very raw, and very believable. But it wasn't about me. It was about the message that I shared and that we've always shared. And that's really what the Restorecast is about, is continuing to share that message, but rather than just about enzymes, probiotics, prebiotics, nutrition, fitness, it's about a lot of different aspects of what is the real message that we need to start sharing, and sharing it with true passion and belief and raw, about spirituality, about religion, about being a dad, about that, the four walls that we call a home. This country's not going to get back on track until we change it in our own home, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
And until we get more and more people that are delivering that message, it doesn't have to be a certain person. It doesn't have to be a celebrity. It doesn't have to be it has to be someone that delivers it in a way that people are able to say, that makes sense. And that's where I believe that I always genuinely believed, as I do to this day, that if we will mimic the very laws that God created in raw fruits and vegetables and grains and diets and nutrition and water, we can physically be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to do that same thing with so many other aspects in society right now. Mm-hmm. And it's got to be done quick. We can't keep going down this road we're going down. We're not getting, we're not doing better as a country.
No, we're continually failing, and and that's what I appreciate so much about your presentations that you would do, is that it was simple, right to the point, and that's how we met. So, we had an upline here who was bringing you in to do events, and ultimately, I was just like, I'm going to just start to take that route and just start planning these events, because there's two types of multi-level marketing people. There's those that have a genuine care to help their customer and make money on the side and whatever they're doing, or there's people who are cutthroat and jump from network marketing to network marketing, right? And so clearly me and Liz were not the biggest people in the company. I think the most we ever got in nutritional sales, we got 2 awards in the mail for 10th in nutritional sales for the month, not for the year. It was for the month that our group had done. We were number 10 at one point. Twice we achieved that, and I believe that was after you came in. We had about 100 people at the event, and I think like 60 people bought stuff. So that propelled us right to number 10 in the company, which out of
that's still 10, a lot. That's a big number.
Yeah, it's a good number. So it was some good months. It was a good month. It wasn't we weren't rich or anything at all. There were a lot of big groups that you work with, a lot of groups driven by money, a lot of good people. And I never thought, hey, I could really get the ear of Shan, but hey, we're going to keep doing the things that we're doing. We're going to help our family, our friends around us. We're going to teach these principles. We're not going to force them. We're not going to say, hey, join our company. If somebody was interested in a business opportunity, hey, we would tell them about it. It wasn't our main thing. Our whole thing, whether it been the air purification technology or the water or the supplements, it would be, these are here to help other people with, if they need help, and get good products at a good price. And so, here we are at the tail end of the company before ultimately we know what happened. We could briefly mention that, but I get a call about 2:00 in the morning, almost 3:00 in the morning. It's after the event, and I'm looking at my phone. You had given me your phone number. I'm like, wow, Shan gave me his phone number. And it's Shan Stratton calling me at 2 to 3 in the morning. He's like, I'm like, does this guy not realize he's in Ohio right now? It's Eastern. I know he's still on Arizona time, but it's we're waking me up in the middle of the night. I remember coming down onto my couch downstairs, um, and talking to you, and you're telling me about this new program, new plan, getting my input and my advice on it. I'm going, why is he asking me? I'm not going to ask why. I'm just going to give him the advice and help out as much as I can. And I think ever since then, for whatever reason, you kept me in a trusted circle. And ironically, the very first time you rolled out the new EcoQuest Infinity plan for the nutrition was with our group. So that was quite an honor for us. And I think that began that friendship with our group, because I think everybody that was in our group, we supported you and had your back, and it wasn't about money. It was about, we believed in the mission, we believed in these principles, we believed in whole food enzyme based principles that can change people's health very quickly and very honestly. It wasn't about making money, and that was just a byproduct. And I think you saw that in our group, and you were excited to share that new plan, all of those things with us, and we got honored to do that. And I forget what year that would have been, probably around 2008ish potentially. And
Yeah.
boy, did it end really quickly after that program, which would have been their best things that came. And I say this about network marketing, right? And it goes back to simple principles. There was a big company called Mona V at the time, and they were dominating. They were on the Forbes list of nutritional companies to look out for the future. They're like number one on the nutritional company Forbes list. And what, like all network marketing companies do, they always try to reinvent themselves. And at that time, EcoQuest had rolled out something I believe was the demise of what they had done, because they had taken a very simple principle and shining the light off of enzyme whole food based principles and revealed a juice product. You were hand in hand, you were involved in that process, ultimately to be cut from that process. And this is a painful part of your story. um, you know, you were let go unfairly. um, I won't let you tell it, but because you probably wouldn't, but you got let go on December 24th, I believe, when you were at Disney, and you got that phone call, right? And no 2 weeks, no nothing. And that is the cutthroat world of letting of never of putting your future in other people's hands. When we work for people who have money as their main object in life, we put our whole households, we put our family, we put everything into that trust and that care. We put all our eggs in that basket. Now, obviously, God is leading our lives and He knows the best things for us, but um, you got shell shocked really quickly. Here you are at this point, starting Infinity2, young man, working with all these athletes, top of the world, get married, wonderful woman, great kids, strong faith. Now you're in a network marketing company. Now it's not just, hey, Shan Stratton is known by Major League Baseball trainers and players. You're doing seminars all over the country, all over the world, doing all this stuff. People are not just like, hey, I've been to these things with you, right? These conference type style conventions, and the line to talk to you would be hundreds of people, right? People would always be lined up for talking to Shan Stratton. Oh, it's Shan Stratton. It's Shan. Like Shan had built a name, and you're going, probably, I'm just a kid. I'm just a guy with a message. And people, because of your dynamic ability to speak, you had become this persona of Shan Stratton, the nutritionist to the pros. And here you are finding yourself December 24th in line at Disney, getting the phone call, it's over. Where were you at mentally, emotionally, spiritually at that point in your life?
Yeah, I was crushed. Um, I don't hold any ill feelings towards um, that company. I think there were some very um, ill thought out decisions. I think there were some terribly large egos. But you know what? I learned a lot, Chris. I,
Mhm.
man, I learned a lot, and I've got so much to be grateful for from that whole experience. One of which is I think that's the first time, maybe not right that moment, because I was crushed. I spent the next month, 2 months, 3 months probably wondering what the heck am I going to do. I got a family, I got kids, I had all the, but that was I think the first time that I really deep down in realized I'm not no one's gonna dictate my future ever again.
Mhm.
No one's gonna tell me you're fired. No one's gonna let me go. No one's gonna tell me what I can and can't do as far as how we run our business, how we grow our business, what we do allow into our business principles, the way we lay out our business principles. And so, if nothing else, that in and of itself may have been one of the greatest lessons that I ever learned. And so I can't be mad or hurt or whatever. In a weird way, I would have to assume that many of them that were behind those decisions have to look back and say, well, that wasn't a very smart decision. I mean, given where it's all at now. But
Mhm.
man, every person that I think of and can remember from that company, I learned something from. I learned some good things out of some people that did some bad things. So I don't.
Well,
Without that, I wouldn't be where I'm at now today.
yeah,
So
I'll
it's
say
part of the
this. I'll
process.
say this. Without calling out names or throw people under the bus, because that's not part of restoration, right? I think so many things like in life, when we're done wrong or something's done wrong to us or unfairly, um, we hold grudges and we hold things into us. And I'll tell you this: um, if you hold and cling on to those things, they store in your organs. They kill us slowly. Anger, pride, jealousy, these things um, that are unsettled. If you're talking about the Bible says that forgiveness isn't for the person that had done you wrong, it's for you. There's an aspect of that is so valuable to learn, that when you truly forgive someone, even though they're not really sorry for what they've done to you, um, you begin to have peace in your own life. And that's part of restoration, part of health. If we can think about all the things we put in our mouth, the things we can use to if we eat cooked foods, we can talk about enzymes, we can talk about these things, but we don't often talk about the emotions that are stored in us, because we just simply won't let go. And you had to be crushed for a long time, longer than what you said, right? And you're probably at a point to now, you're like, you can look at it in hindsight and go, it was needed for this next stage of my life. And I think that's
Yeah.
what God is always trying to do. He's always saying, I'm going to close, when I close a door, I'm going to close it real quick. And he did for you really quickly, Shan. He closed that door. And I'll tell you, in my own life, so here we are, Ecoquest at this point. So we're working together with you. We're doing these things. Now they're about to be bought out. So now their Ecoquest is about to be bought out, almost like instantaneously. Shan's gone. Another deal's coming in play. They're a brand new company. We're in debt to our eyeballs from running our business. You do all these different things, and we're failing. And you were like, hey, there's no way for me to come back. I went down to a seminar with the new ownership, and I talked to the second in command guy specifically about you. And he said, Yeah, we had a conversation with Shan. We really want him back. We're gonna get him back. He's so important. And you're like, nah, that is not what's gonna happen. That isn't really what's on the table. And I think you were being courted by a lot of other companies at that time. A lot of other people were trying to bring you aboard, and we made the decision we're not going to go with this company either. And we found ourselves in a really bad financial place for probably for about that year and a half, 2 years, that you decide to make a decision. But so I encourage everybody in that place, whether it's work or family, is stop holding those emotions based upon what somebody has done to you. Um, you have to move past it. Whether how wrong it was, forgiveness comes it's not for them. Hey, they may be unrepentant their whole life. They may say, I'm never sorry. It's not for them. It's for you. It's absolutely for you. And at this point in your life, you're working down at one place we didn't talk about. One of the most vital parts of your business, that how you landed professional athletes for many of those years in Infinity2, was a place called Fisher Sports. And you got to work at one of the most prestigious um, sports facilities in Arizona. And while you were there without a product really to sell anymore, because you're not able to do a lot of stuff, and I think Ecoquest pretty much cut you off cold turkey in a lot of ways of how you could buy product, sell product. Now the teams are cut off, and they're trying to go directly, cutting you out as the middle guy to the teams. And what's the next thing that stumbles upon you? It was something that had to do with something very similar in regards of nutrient utilization, and you were exposed to something that became the next thing of how your next form of restoration happened. What was that, Shan?
Well, let me let me say real quickly too about Fisher Sport Physical Therapy. Big shout out to Brett Fisher. He was the owner. I remember, and I'm going to make him watch this, because I remember when I went down and visited the very first time down there. It was a tiny one, maybe 2-room type office complex facility, whatever you want to call it. Few people in there. I was carting the microscope in there, and we put it up on a training table, and the training tables are padded, so the microscope was kind of teetering. And I mean, we were both just so new and raw and young and trying to find our way. He has become one of the probably one of the top world's best known physical therapists, owners, trainers, and he just got hired by the Detroit Lions. So again, a big shout out to Brett Fisher. He and I text back and forth about 3-4 days ago. Miss him a lot. Love him. Love his family. But he was just another one of those that I will forever be grateful for. If it wasn't for him and those experiences and us really supporting each other when neither one of us had anything, and supporting each other and helping each other, and that's awesome. One other thing I want to say, Chris, that when you're talking about forgiveness, one thing that I've learned, and maybe this is part of the Restore cast that comes in on the on the faith side, or religious or spiritual, or maybe just life, but I think it's more than that. I think it's also the physical side. I've gone through a lot of experiences. I've had life taken from my family. I've had opportunities taken. I've had my my money taken. I've had a lot of things taken. So I get asked to this day a lot of times, "Oh man, have you been able to forgive them?" You know what? That's a fair question. I mean, an unfair question, because I look at forgiveness differently. I don't not forgive them. I don't have to verbalize I forgive them. There's just no meaning in my life. There's zero. I'm not happy. I'm not sad. I'm not okay. I'm not, So the word forgiveness, I think, is really possibly relevant to each individual person and how you handle that. I think it is a guideline for forgiveness, meaning, is it still hampering your life? And that's what you're saying, Chris, is if it's still causing a detriment in your life, then probably something needs to be done about it. But I don't even answer the question anymore when someone says, oh, can you forgive him for this? Or can you forgive them for that? I don't even, they're not even part of my vocabulary. So no, yes, no, I don't know. There's no animosity. I'm not mad, but there's just nothing. So that again, that kind of goes back to what this whole thing is about, Chris, is there just been so many things happen in my life, almost all of it great and awesome and amazing and spiritual building, but there's also some pretty damn tough things that, yeah, there's some tough ones too. Chris, can you hear me? You're muted. I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, what I was saying was there's a lot of stuff that we didn't touch base on, that things that your family's been on 60 Minutes for. There's a lot of things, that go to those infinity days. They're all wrapped up into your story of what molds you, what has molded your family, what is molding you today. And that's probably something maybe for a future episode.
Yeah.
Not my place to even be there in that regard. This is a personal issue, for sure. But you're right. How do you some of the most, the worst things imaginable when it happens to a family? How do you not store those emotions? How do you not do that? That's where prayer and ironically surrounding yourselves with loved ones so that you can help each other through those processes is so healing to the body. And we're killing ourselves with the stresses of life, right? You went from having all these things that did happen to you that we didn't talk about, to being constantly stressed out and traveling, constantly stressed out with trying to please an owner, trying to please someone else while being a dad at home and being a mom or being a father at home, and trying to find time for your brothers and your sister and family members, right? And then keep up the relationship with how many other trainers and this guy needs to talk to me, or got to get back to that email. This kind of stuff is killing the father, right? So the working dad who does do the right thing, this is the stuff that then kills him. Here he is going to take care of his family, be the provider that the Bible tells us that men need to be, takes care of his kids and his family, then gets into the rat race where nothing but stress enters into his life to keep him from now doing all the other things, which is the nurturing of his family and the spiritual leadership and the guidance. And so here you find yourself, doing all this amazing stuff, being fired, and then, getting back to that time at Fisher Sports, somebody brings to you this product, which becomes this next thing of where are you going to find Shan Stratton to be? Because I think you had already, I don't know where your headspace was, but you found a new product at this time that gave you an opportunity to now become a speaker again. And what was that to the audience? What was that?
Well, one other thing I think we should share, before we get there, because there has to be some wonder of, well, Shan, you didn't have the only nutrition products that were out there. And just because you did something with the New York Yankees, how did, a lot of people don't know that I've worked with almost every single team in Major League Baseball, or have worked with their trainers and educated them and provided nutritional supplements, which we never gave product. As one of my rules, I do not give free product to professional athletes. That's just, if I'm going to give free product, it's going to be to a single mom, or it's going to be to a charity, or it's going to be to a food bank, or it's going to be something like that. It's not going to be to an athlete. So a lot of times people think, well, how did you get really relevant and so well known with professional athletes, but also at a league level in Major League Baseball. So let me share about NSF.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about stress and things that hit you and not make you want to, just knock you down. So I started with the Yankees, as I said, and then from there started work with multiple other teams. And I at the time I was about 15 different teams. And that was right around the time where working with 15 teams, I was running from team to team to team to team, training room to this stadium to that stadium. And all of a sudden, the steroid scandal, the Balco thing, that hit right at that time. And, we don't need to use any names or anything else, but someone that or a few that got busted for steroids come back to the team and said, "Oh, I never used steroids. It must have been in something that you provided me in your training room. So it's your fault, not my fault." So instantly the team owners start looking at the training staff and seeing what's in the room. And guess where all the fingers point? Directly to Shan and company.
Mm-hmm.
So within a 24-hour period of time, Major League Baseball comes out and says, supplements are banned in all training rooms. Chris, that's what I had built. My reputation, my life, my everything was built off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And instantly, within a period of hours, banned from all training rooms. And I can remember phone call after phone call after phone call. And I could see it coming in, and I knew what they were calling about. "Hey, Shan, real sorry, but we can't have your product in here anymore. You want me to send it back? You want me to just chuck it? What do you want me to do with it? I'm real sorry." Talk about stress and devastating, Chris. So this is another one of those times where I think it's important to share that it would have been very easily for me to say, poor me, man, I just keep getting knocked down with this and then that. What I did, long story short, is I went to the trainers meeting. Every year there's a meeting where all the head trainers and assistant trainers, I went to that meeting and I asked them all if there would be an opportunity or an interest or a willingness for me to find a certification agency or a certification company that could certify or test for products before they went into the training room. I said, well, that's kind of a league level thing, but I assume it would. So Mark Laton, good long friend of mine, he was in charge of the medical side for Major League Baseball. Started talking to Mark. He put me in touch with the right people at Major League Baseball, commission level, and I coordinated. I went to a company called NSF. They're actually National Sanitation Foundation. You see their logo on most anything that's in a kitchen anywhere or in a restaurant. It's National Sanitation Foundation, but they also quickly had a division that we all labeled Nutrition Safety Foundation, and created an outline. And so I pulled NSF and Major League Baseball together to create NSF. And that, to this day, Chris, to this day, if your product isn't certified through NSF, you cannot have your product in a clubhouse, nor can a professional athlete take it. So when you look on nutritional supplements, you're going to see that NSF logo there, and that basically means that NSF has verified that product. Like most things, unfortunately, well, first of all, we had the first product ever certified by NSF and approved by Major League Baseball. First in the history, and that was the first one back into the clubhouses and club rooms.
That was Infinity2
Yep. Yep, that was the name of the product.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first certification. And it is such a difficult certification, and it's so strenuous. Very, very few companies could actually qualify, and almost every company's ingredients and products failed testing. That shows you how much crap is in the nutritional industry out there. They couldn't pass the testing to get the certification to get into Major League Baseball. So really, for the first 2 or 3 years, Chris, there were only about 5 of us in the entire country that even had products that passed qualification and certification. Very quickly, though, like a lot of things, greed, money, under the table, whatever you want to call it, all of a sudden the fees from NSF to get a product certified, they were so high. There's no way little old, smaller company, even though, Infinity and Ecoquest, we weren't small companies, but we weren't large enough to foot $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 bill for a certification to sell a product into a clubhouse that's going to use maybe $10,000 worth of product. So it very quickly became political and money and all of that. So it's nothing like what it was then. But I share that story because that's another example of we all get knocked down. We do. My story's something that happened, but that's no different than every person listening right now can think about, yeah, you know what, man, would that knock me down? Or I'm knocked down right now, but I can get back up. I can keep going again. I can figure something out. We all have that inside of us, and it happens for a dadgum reason. Stay driving, stay strong to your faith, stay strong to your body, stay strong to your beliefs, stay strong to, your message, your mission, stay strong to your family, stay strong to your, all of those things. You're going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me say this on that regards. You won't say it, but I'll say it. NSF owes you royalties for life. Hey,
it'll never happen.
It'll never happen, or at least or that you get free NSF certification for life, and yet it never happened. Actually, your costs continue to rise and rise and rise, and cutting out that because it is political, right? And those are things that we can hold on to. So let me get to this the next time because I think we've got 14 minutes for guys. This is episode 1. And we're going to be coming back with a part 2 to this story. And then Shan's going to be switching roles. And I won't be doing the interview. Shan's going to be bringing in some of these people from his past, talking about things, just hearing their stories. And that's what this whole cast is going to do. So you stumbled into this new product that was changing how we viewed water. And this gave you this new platform. And why don't you share a little bit about how that came into your life and, what that did for you almost instantly in just restoring your vision for your future of just where you were at that moment. Because here you are, you don't really have a job and you don't have a paycheck. You're probably eating ramen noodles. And,
times.
Yeah, right. But your family is probably getting closer together. What product was this, and what did it do for you at that time?
So I'll just jump right to it. It's alkalizing water. For years and years and years and years, no matter how many enzymes, probiotics, prebiotics, whole food vitamins, chelated minerals, all of those things I would provide for athletes, the amount of cooked and processed foods that athletes / we eat creates such a high acid production within the body, whether that be stomach acid, hydrochloric acid, or whether that be from physical and emotional stress of lactic acid production, uric acid production. We are just bombarded with acid. So for many, many, many years, no matter how hard I tried to get an athlete or individual to eat an alkalizing diet, it just really wasn't even feasible to do, especially to the athletes I was working with. We would be down in the training room and they would come in real quick afterwards, run to the kitchen, and everything, all the food in there is cooked and processed. Now it's healthy, but we couldn't get them to eat enough alkalizing foods to be alkaline. So pretty much every athlete, and now pretty much every single individual in the world for that matter, is acidic. Our bodies are intended to be more alkaline. The more alkaline a body is, the lower risk factors they have for acid-based diseases, namely cancer, diabetes. These are two very much acid-based diseases. The more acidic that our tissue sites are, the higher risk factors we have for illness, sickness, and disease. So when I was introduced to a technology that provided an alkalizing form of water, that was intriguing to me. And that was something that I said, okay, I can look into that, because at the time I was getting hit with everything. Every day a new package would show up, a new, FedEx would show up, a new phone call, and everyone had, Shan, if you can just get this to the New York Yankees or to the Boston Red Sox or the San Diego Padres or right down the street to the Arizona Diamondbacks, man, that'll change their life. I heard that story every day. So we had to tell our staff, no more. That's it. We do what we do. We do enzymes, probiotics, prebiotics, whole food vitamins, chelated minerals, greens. That's about it. That's it. Alkalizing water was intriguing. So I was fortunate to get a lot of the research, a lot of the data, went out to California, actually met the owner of a company called Enagic. Many of you know what company it is. Enagic's owner, he's from Japan. So he and I actually got to speak Japanese together. And that was an interesting, funny story, because it actually, the first time I was introduced to him, I was in the restroom at a Sheraton in Utah. I was in the restroom, and who walks in but Mr. Oshiro walks into the restroom, and as we're standing there urinating together, I look over and in Japanese tell him hi and strike up a conversation, and that's really how it all started. And I, from that point forward, have been representing and talking about and sharing and using an alkalizing form of water. And long story short, alkaline water is catching on all in every store for the money aspect of it. It's for a different podcast, but alkaline water is made from adding a few little minerals to filtered water. Alkalizing water is made through process of called electrolysis, requires electricity and minerals, and that is a whole separate process. So that technology and that company offered me an opportunity to start speaking at a lot of those events. And they started growing, and they're continuing to grow. I mean, exponentially grow. And I spoke at their events, at almost every single event for many, many, many years, wrote a book, actually sold over 20,000 copies of that book. And so that was another one of those things that I look at and say, if things didn't happen that way in my life in the past, I may or may not have this opportunity. And it was an eye-opening change or addition to one of my missions, Chris, which is to give the body what it needs to function at peak performance. And the thing that I try and point out is, if 75% of our body is made up of water, what's the most that the body can be made up of the diet we eat? 25. 75, 25. Where should some of our focus be put?
Right.
It's in that water. And so that has been and continues to be a huge, gigantic factor addition to my philosophy. Enzymes, probiotics, prebiotics, vitamins, minerals, and alkalizing water.
Yeah. Well, I think so. So here we are in your story, and we're at this part. You get fired, and you stumble upon. The gentleman brings you Kangen water.
Fred Brown.
Yep, Fred Brown.
Jim Gilliland. Yep.
They bring to you, and you're sitting there going, okay, not interested. It makes it absorb better. You go, wait a minute, what? Wait, hold on. They spoke your language, but it was because of all of those years at Ecoquest of developing, becoming that speaker, that you really got to do it like it was your career. And here you are now, a year into the speaking. You're doing these events. You shoot up through the ranks into this company. You're now providing income for your family again through Enagic and through Kangen. So it was a great lifesaver financially for your family, for all of these things. And then all of a sudden, you get the itching back to your roots. And guys, we're going to have to stop the episode here. So we are right at around the 2-hour mark. Guys, we're going to go into the rise of core health products, the fall of core health products, and how Shan is being restored through Restore Health Plus, his life, the company, the future of the products that we bring and deliver to you guys. Wow, this has been 2 hours of an amazing episode of going through Shan's story and journey, and it's only a snippet of things that actually occurred and happened. Some juicy details, mostly no juicy details, but those are things that probably will come out over time. And Shan, I've been blessed to sit here, reminisce with you for this time, and looking forward to part 2 that is coming up. But guys, if you want to make sure you see part 2, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, the Facebook page, Shan Stratton. Go there. You can find this there. And make sure you go to restorehealthplus.com. Shan's going to give you a little quick synopsis of what Restore Health Plus is and where you can go to subscribe and sign up for the email list. And just a little bit quickly, because that is our sponsor today, Restore Health Plus.
Well, Chris, it's been an honor, and certainly some emotions up and down. And I've seen some pictures that I haven't seen in years, and you've sparked a lot of memories and things that I'd really forgotten. And as you said, the interesting part of the story is yet to come. I mean, really, after I'd got my feet back under myself with Enagic, started building that company, I was just getting called day after day after day after day. Shan, I need those enzymes. I need probiotics. I need prebiotics. I need all those things you taught about for years. I need them. I need them. I need them. And we had people offering investments and things like that. And I just couldn't do it, Chris. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, the time is right. That's what the next part of the story is really going to be. And there are parts of the next part of the next series that I'm not proud of. When you say a small snippet of what's to come, in building core health products, I got burned out. I was working 12, 14, 16 hours a day, and I got burned out, and I made some decisions that that ultimately were not the right decisions, and decisions that I knew in my heart weren't the right decisions. But I'll share those with you as I take you through the highs and the lows of what has really happened over the past. What's it been, Chris? How many years? You know it better than I do.
3 years, roughly. 3? Getting close. No.
Core.
For Core Health, we started 2010. So
13 years.
Yeah,
around 13 years. The next segment will be about the last 13 years, and that's where you're going to get the nitty-gritty details on on a lot of things. And I'm excited to share all that with you.
I got a lot of pictures too. So.
Oh no,
a lot of fun stuff.
I'm scared.
I got pictures of me and Liz. We got pictures of. We're going to talk about everything. We've got former employee pictures. We got some good stuff, some things that we'll go through. So we're going to talk about some great things, but we're going to get to the restoration. And guys, I think that is the purpose that I hope you guys are here for, is to find restoration in your life, whether that be in physical fitness, whether that be in health, whether that be in just life in general, and growing your family or in your faith. And that will be the Restore Health cast that is coming to you. And I'm going to be getting Shan a bunch of interviews. Shan's going to be getting a bunch of interviews. And as this thing grows, maybe I'll be doing some solo interviews. I'll ask Shan if we can do that. And hopefully maybe even have Liz do some interviews too. So we'll be doing some really amazing stuff here right at the Restore Cast, brought to you by Restore Health Plus.
Well, make sure and subscribe so that you know when all these are coming out, and just know that I'm back here. I am where I am supposed to be. My wife, my kids, we all support the message that we will be delivering, and you're going to see behind the curtains on everything here on the Restore Cast as we move forward. So thank you all. I look forward to a great relationship moving forward and getting everything back on track the way that it should have been from day one. Thank you, Chris. God bless you all.
That have a great day.